Chapter 2014. Eldest brother apprentice did not want her anymore. In the end, spiritual master Shanjing gave the golden splitting spell cure to Di Fui. The main reason was that the elixir given by Di Fui was beneficial. When he soaked in it, the pain was lightened significantly. Secondly, Qing Luo never really managed to recover from the snake's poison. Although her life was saved, her whole body still felt uncomfortable. Every day, she would cry and scream. It actually disturbed all the people in the valley. Even spiritual master Shanjing could not sleep well due to her screams. However, there was nothing that he could do to fix the problem. Since Di Fui came to make a deal that involved the peach snake venom, they finally treat Qing Luo properly, and spiritual master Shanjing could have some peace and rest. When Di Fui got the cure, he was about to leave. However, spiritual master Yuhang could not help but stop him and ask, "You grew up together with Qing Luo, and she is your young sister apprentice. She has always admired and respected you, and you used to be very good to her. If spiritual master Shanjing did not make the trade with you, would you really see your younger sister apprentice suffer to death?" Di Fui stopped, and his eyes fell on spiritual master Yuhang. He faintly said, "The day when Qing Luo was poisoned, her life was in danger. The person who saved her in time was the evil girl you have been cursing. Qing Luo has always been arrogant to her, but the evil girl was not calculative. To find a peach snake, she risked her life. She saved Qing Luo and Si Qing, and the grace of saving lives is worth every repayment." However, what had Qing Luo done? Not only did she not repay her, but she also maliciously hurt and humiliated the individual who saved her life. I despise such characters. I don't have such a sister. I was really good to her before, but now I know that I am blind. This kind of sister is not worth saving. If spiritual master Shanjing did not make a trade with me, I would rather break this cure than give it to Qing Luo, because she is not worth it. It was rare for Di Fui to say so many words. Spiritual master Yuhang was startled and could only see Di Fui stride away. Obviously, Di Fui was criticizing Qing Luo, but somehow spiritual master Yuhang felt embarrassed. He stood there in contemplation when suddenly he heard some movements behind him. He turned his head and saw Qing Luo's pale face. Her problem had been solved, and the suffering pain that she had to endure for the past few days had disappeared. Nonetheless, as the cure came at a very late time, her skills were basically abolished. She naturally heard that it was her eldest brother apprentice that brought her the cure. Therefore, once her poison was cured, she disregarded her physical weakness and ran to see him, but only heard the last words Di Fui uttered about her. She was badly attacked and stood there with a pale face. Her knees were weak as she struggled to stand properly. It turned out that her eldest brother apprentice was here to make a trade that would benefit the evil woman. It turned out that her eldest brother apprentice would rather smash the vial of medicine than give it to her. Her eldest brother apprentice did not want her anymore. Naturally, spiritual master Yuhang saw Qing Luo's mouth twitch a few times as she cried. She was very sad. Spiritual master Yuhang had nowhere to vent his anger, so he decided to take it out on her. "Do you still dare to cry? If you didn't gossip about her in the first place, we would not have suffered all these losses." Spiritual master Yuhang usually pampered Qing Luo a lot. After all, he only had a few female disciples. Qing Luo was very smart and knew how to make spiritual master Yuhang happy, so he always favored her a lot. But the recent behavior of this female disciple did make him rather disgusted. This was the first time he had been so direct and blunt to Qing Luo, and out of shock, she held back her tears. Chapter 2015. Qing Luo mumbled, "Master, it's not that I don't know how to be grateful. The evil girl is really suspicious. I don't know how old she is, but she always wants to steal eldest brother apprentice. Master, where did this evil woman come from? I can see that her martial arts skills are crazily good. Eldest brother apprentice has been fascinated by her, and I am afraid that she will do something unfavorable to him in the future." "Shut up. No matter what you think, she has saved your life. Qing Luo, you have really disappointed me. Starting from today, you'll need to go back to Mount Wujia and do your reflection in Cliff Sigua. Come back after 10 years. Qing Luo's face turned pale. She kneeled and begged, Master, go away. If you say one more word, you will be punished for 20 years. Qing Luo left silently in disappointment. Spiritual Master Yu Hang rubbed his eyebrows in frustration. For the sake of protecting Shen Yinma, he had done some investigation into Gu Shijiu, but the information was minimal. He only knew that she was from the lower bound and did not like to make friends with anyone in the upper bound. People have known about her for hundreds of years. Spiritual Master Yu Hang was still skeptical about the fact that she came from the lower bound because her skills were crazily good. He also knew a lot of the strongest people from the lower bound who ascended to the upper bound. These people were basically at the primary level of the mighty immortals after they ascended. Only a few could reach the second level of the mighty immortals, which was considered to be very rare. However, the martial arts Gu Shijiu possessed could only be described as unfathomable. They had 10 masters encircle her, but she could still escape and even hurt a few of them. Based on his estimations, she would have reached level 9 of a mighty immortal. It was just a matter of time to reach the level of great deity. How could the lower bound have such a master? Why had she not ascended? Had she been practicing in the lower bound that had very limited spiritual power? Even if someone practiced in the most potent places in the upper bound, it would take thousands of years to reach her level. The only possibility was that she was someone with the bloodline of a god. However, it seemed a very unlikely possibility. The Devil Master, Ning Xiuma, was said to have practiced for thousands of years before she cultivated to the level of a great deity. Therefore, Gu Shijiu must be at least a few thousand years old, or possibly even 10,000 years old. This person was so mysterious. Therefore, he was afraid that the intentions behind her were not that simple. She had been wandering around Shen Yinma for some time now. What was her purpose in the end? If she was the remaining member of the enemy of the Divine Lord, Luo Jiuqin, then her intention to approach Yinma must be evil. Spiritual Master Yu Hang was so conflicted by the matter. When the Divine Lord and his wife left, they said that they would let their kid learn from the 10 masters. In fact, they entrusted the 10 masters to look after their kid. They were afraid that the remainder of Luo Jiuqin's clan would be out to harm the kid. Due to Shen Yinma's fascination with the evil girl, things became more difficult for them since he did not want to recognize them as his master. If anything happened to Shen Yinma in the future, how could they explain it to his parents? Spiritual Master Yu Hang simply could not let it go. He gathered all the other masters who were still in the valley to discuss the matter and put his concerns into consideration. The others seemed to nod rather frequently at his remarks. Spiritual Master Shanjing was the only one who was still angry. We have been worrying about him, but he is fascinated by the evil girl and does not appreciate our help. He only thinks of protecting that evil girl. Master Fengxing sighed. Nyima is only a 6-year-old child. He has very little social experience. That woman is an experienced master with a rich history. Moreover, she has an enchanting appearance. Chapter 2016, Nyinma is attracted to her. It is okay for him not to recognize us as his master, but he is the son of the Divine Lord, and the Divine Lord has great grace with us. We can't watch him go astray, or else how can we explain the situation to the Divine Lord when he returns? There was no objection after this sentence was said. Spiritual Master Shanjing clapped his hands. If I knew this earlier, we should not have given him the cure to save the evil girl. My golden splitting spell had hit the evil girl. Without the cure, she would definitely die. How good is it if we settled her this way? Spiritual Master Yu Hang shook his head. With Niemo's temperament, there is nothing he can't get. Since he came for the cure, even if we don't trade it with him, he will get it by other means. We could strain our relationship with him as well if we are not careful. Master Fengxing sighed. This woman is awful. When the Divine Lord and Devil Master were on the continent, she never disturbed little Nianma. In fact, she disappeared right after giving him his birthday present. But now that the couple is not around, she has started making her advances. If only they could return now. Perhaps all our troubles will be resolved. These masters talked for a long time here. There were a lot of complaints at first, but then they finally started to discuss the next steps. Everyone agreed that it's a rebellious period for Shun Yinma. The more they restrict him, the more he would rebel. Therefore, instead of limiting him, it would be better to let him have his freedom. Everyone would secretly pay attention to the evil woman's movements. If the woman really had some evil intention, she would eventually be exposed. Once they catch her doing something wrong, the kid will wake up. The most important thing to remember was that Shun Yinma was the son of the Divine Lord. He would naturally mature early and start to be interested in the opposite sex. In the past, they only paid attention to his practice and never considered the emotional aspects of his development. Since he was already mature, they would try to place a few beautiful women around him. When there were more girls around him, he might shift his attention and no longer be interested in that old woman. Soon after, everyone started to discuss what kind of ladies to put around Shun Yinma. The sun was just right, and the spring breeze was warm enough. Gu Shijio, who was called an evil old lady, was now sitting in a rocking chair and enjoying the heat. The mussel, which had its shell open, was sleeping beside her with saliva all over its mouth while Lu Wu was catching mosquitoes in the garden. The mosquitoes here were of the highest standards. They were fast and naturally more challenging to catch. They could even camouflage themselves in the trees or flowers where they landed. Lu Wu spent time catching them out of boredom. Nonetheless, it also helped it improve its flexibility. It was not like the mussel, which was lazy and only slept and ate. The mussel had gained a few pounds after it came to this continent. Its shell would soon become a dwelling. Lu Wu looked at Gu Shijio. She was now out of danger, but apparently she still did not have much strength. She had been quite lazy and ate significantly less than before. Lu Wu initially thought that the reason why its owner ate less was because Long Sai was stingy, but clearly it was mistaken. These meals in the upper bound were very delicious. Most of them were medicated diets, which could enhance the spiritual power of its consumer. After Lu Wu and the mussel came to this continent, they had eaten a lot of food. They were satisfied with the taste, and, at the same time, it had helped to enhance their spiritual power. Lu Wu could easily tell dozens of tasty and beneficial food apart now. Meanwhile, the mussel could probably distinguish between more than 100 dishes. Chapter 2017 Long Sai was a general of the upper bound, and the Emperor Immortal highly valued him. He was very wealthy due to his position. Therefore, his kitchen was supposed to be full of all kinds of nutritious food. Since Lu Wu's owner was injured, she should be consuming a lot more supplements and nutritious food. Long Sai, as the friend and host of its master, should serve her at least a dozen nice and tasty meals. However, what was served every day were plain rice, veggies, and radish. There was no taste and no nutrition in these dishes. How could its owner swallow them down? Both the mussel and Lu Wu were somewhat disappointed for their master. However, if they complained to their master, even if their master did not speak out, she would definitely feel sad. That was not good for her recovery. Therefore, Mussel and Lu Wu had been holding back their emotions. Their owner was frail for the past few days. She often fell asleep under the sun while trying to restore her energy. Long Sai came back to see her like this and wanted to take her back to the house. However, the mussel did not allow him to do so. It felt that Long Sai was very suspicious and had the intention to starve its master until she fainted so that he could take advantage of its beautiful master. The mussel would drag Gu Shijio into its shell and then send her to the bed in the house. It would not let Long Sai get close to its master. Both the mussel and Lu Wu were fierce. Long Sai always felt that they were hostile toward him. They always treated him like a thief. He naturally did not bother them. After all, these are just the favorite pets Gu Shijio had, and she usually pampered them a lot. Therefore, he could only get close to Gu Shijio when she was awake. He would often chat with her and also check on her injuries. She did improve, but the speed of recovery was very slow. She could barely get dressed on her own, and walking a small round in the yard made her sweat profusely. 3 days had passed, and Gu Shijio could now carry herself to the garden. She spent more time awake than resting, and no longer fell asleep halfway when she talked. It was now near to noon, so the servant sent another meal and placed it on the stone table in front of Gushijio. The mussel was awake after it smelled the rice. It stretched its neck to the stone table and felt angry again. The dishes were green vegetables and radish with white rice again. This overlord Long seemed to be feeding a rabbit. Gushijio woke up and slowly ate the meal. She then strolled a small circle along the bluestone path in the garden. The mussel and Lu Wu both watched her carefully. When they saw that she did not sweat after her usual lap, they felt somewhat relieved. Gushijio continued to lie on the rocking chair and slept again after her usual routine stroll. Sleeping could speed up her recovery and help her maintain her strength. The mussel and Lu Wu looked at each other and exchanged their thoughts without speaking. They decided to be self-reliant and worked hard to solve the meal problem for their master. The mussel went to hunting, while Lu Wu waited here to look after her. Although the mussel was lazy, it was determined to be diligent this time to bring back excellent food for its owner. Therefore, it acted quickly and ran. It used to see a wild deer at Yaori Hill in the 6th level of heaven. It wanted to hunt one for its owner to help strengthen her body. Recently, the Saha world was not in a peaceful state. Although the case of the missing children had been solved, the culprit was never found. The Emperor Immortal had sent a lot of soldiers and animals to go out and find the accused. However, he had not received any news. There were also disappearances in other places, but this time it was fairy beasts that had disappeared. A number of fairy beasts were inexplicably missing. It was essential to know that the beasts in this Saha world were very important. They were creatures that helped in battle and chauffeured the people. Occasionally, they would be majestic pets as well, which serve as a statement of status to their owner. The sudden disappearance of the beasts caused heartbreak for their owners. Every day, they would cry in the Golden Temple and beg the Emperor Immortal to send people to look for their pets. Over the past 2 days, the Emperor Immortal had discussed with the officers about the details. Long Sai was the right arm of the Emperor, so naturally, he could not be absent. He could not even take leave at this moment. He often spent his entire day in the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Today was the first time that his meetings ended earlier. The red sun on the horizon was still visible. When he returned to his house, he did not even change his clothes, but went straight to look for Gushijio. His servant told him that she was still in the garden, so he rushed there. He saw her lying on the rocking chair and went closer. It was rare that she was still awake, and she was bored while playing with the willow branches. The evening wind blew her hair, and her beauty was suffocating. Long Sai leaned on a big stone and looked at her for a moment. Then he walked over. "Shijio, you look much better today." He walked forward to check her pulse, as per his regular routine. Her pulse was much better than before. His eyes fell on her hands that were knitting something. She was knitting a swan, and it looked very lively. A sudden familiarity had struck him. A sentence then appeared in his mind. How can a sparrow know the passion of a swan? Instructor Long, you are a swan. You will be successful in the future. I want to give you this as a gift. His eyes slightly widened. He had a feeling that this occurred in his past life with her. Unfortunately, she had never mentioned anything related to the past to him. She never even mentioned anything about the lower bound to Long Sai. Whenever he asked, she always smiled and told him that as he was now living a new life, he should start every new and not hold on to the past. If Gushijio did not want to say something, she would never tell no matter how much he asked. Therefore, Long Sai did not pester her. However, he knew that there must have been something between them. He also knew that she was the lord in lower bound, and he was her subordinate. "Shijio, can I have this?" he asked her. Gushijio was a generous person, so she handed it to him. "Well, you are like a swan, and it is your time to make great achievements. It is a good sign to give you this gift." Long Sai looked at the knitted swan for a moment, then kept it carefully. He chatted with her again and talked about the recent disappearance of fairy beasts. He was afraid that she was tired, so he did not tell in too much detail. Gushijio did not show any concern about the fair beasts. Instead, she asked, "Is there any news about Nyenma?" Long Sai was slightly bitter. After Di Fui left, Gushijio asked about him almost every day. Apparently, She was worried about that kid. Long Sai sighed. Shijio, you can rest assured. Those people are his masters, and they will not be unfavorable to him in any way. He will not be in danger. Besides, the Phonian Valley is far away from here. It will take at least 5 to 6 days for him to go back and forth, excluding the time spent on getting the cure. It's only been about 3 days. He can't come back so quickly. Long Sai preferred not to talk about that child. He looked at Gu Shijio and spoke. Shijio, I think you can eat some meat today. Gu Shijio sighed with relief. I want to eat fish. These days, she had been eating the greens and radishes every day. She was rather sick of it now. However, her injury required her to eat light and as little as possible, so she had been eating porridge every day. Long Sai was excited. All right, I'm going fishing. He was very good at fishing, and soon he fished a few sea bases out of the pond. Gu Shijio watched Long Sai fishing to kill her boredom. Lush trees shaded the lake, and the air was full of grass and wooden scents. Long Sai occasionally looked at her while he caught fishes for her meal. She seemed to be playing with stones all the while. Gu Shijio threw a dozen stones in her hand into the pond. The pebbles were colorful and formed numerous bright arcs in her hands under the sunlight. It was a lovely scene to see. Long Sai's heart moved. He seemed to have experienced the same situation before. He blurted out, Shijio, have we ever been like this? The remaining stones in Gu Zijia's hands fell. She smiled and said, sometimes you may feel a sense of familiarity with certain situations. In fact, it is just an illusion. She looked up into his bucket and said, wow, you have caught 3 fishes. I can go and cook them now. You don't have to fish anymore. It will be a waste. Was it just an illusion? Long Sai was disappointed by the answer he received. He then went to prepare the fishes for cooking. The two were on the edge of the lake. Gu Shijio squatted there, watching him work. His kind gesture touched her. After all, she did get along with Long Sai like this in the modern world. Long Sai did remember it correctly. What about herself? When she was together with Shan Yinma, she often had the feeling of déjà vu, especially when they were in the wooden tubs. She had a similar strong feeling. Had she experienced the same thing with Shan Yinma before? Was Shan Yinma the reincarnation of Huang too? She was shocked by her thoughts and simultaneously dropped the pebbles in her hand. They swayed in circles while sinking, just like her heart. Could it be possible? Huang Tu had passed away for hundreds of years, while Shen Yinma was still so young. Furthermore, according to the mysterious voice in her brain, Shen Yinma was the reincarnation of the master of the heavenly law. Was it impossible for Huang Tu to be the reincarnation of the master of heavenly law as well? As far as she was aware, Huang Tu was once the lord of the lower bound, and his demise was also the fate of his life. If he was the master of heavenly law, he could easily change his fate, right? If he did not want to die, with the ability of the master of heavenly law, it should easily be reversed. In the illusions, she could see that he loved her very much. If he loved her so deeply, how could he bear to leave her alone? Therefore, Huang Tu should not be the master of heavenly law. Gu Shijio was startled for a moment as Long Sai stared at her and handed her a fish. Come and deal with this fish. You are quite good at grilling fish. Why don't you try to do one? Gu Shijio took the fish and handled it. Her technique was excellent and straightforward. It seemed like she always did in the past. Long Sai looked at her, and his heart moved again. He dreamed of this before. He dreamed that she cooked him a grilled fish, and the technique was exactly the same. What was the relationship between them before he ascended? Long Sai generally was distant from other people. However, he could not let her go. Every time he thought about her, his heart was flustered. The way she treated him was not like a superior to speaking to her subordinates, but more like friends. He took a deep breath and seemed to make a decision. He then told her jokes until she laughed happily. Her smile was adorable. Her eyebrows were perfectly curved. As soon as he lifted his hand, a small fish scale flew to her forehead. She seemed to be a bit startled and did not pay attention to it. Long Sai stepped forward, and his fingers suddenly wiped the scale off her forehead. Gu Shijio involuntarily moved her head away, and his fingertips had touched her eyebrows. Everything happened very promptly, and Gu Zija was not aware of the numbness of her feet. Since her body was still weak, she almost fell backward. Long Sai subconsciously stretched his sleeves and caught her in his embrace. A warm and soft body was in his arms, and Long Sai's heart suddenly swayed. On the other hand, Gu Shijio was still stunned. She asked, "What's wrong?" Long Sai stuttered, "You have a fish scale on your forehead. I wanted to wipe it off for you." Gu Shijio was speechless. "Do you have fish scales on your hand too? Wouldn't that just make it worse?" When she about to support herself up again, there was a light sound heard from not far away. It seemed like someone had stepped on a few branches with brute force. Gu Shijio and Long Sai turned their heads and saw a person standing at the big tree in the distance. He was in a purple robe and looked like a purple orchid tree from afar. This person wore a butterfly mask on his face, and it shone under the sunlight. It was Di Fui. He actually came back so soon. Beside him was a beast with white wings. It looked like a hybrid between a horse and a lion. It had the mane of a white lion and a tail with a flame-shaped tip at the end. There was a pair of horns on its head, and it had a pair of deep blue eyes looking down as if it could see through everything. Di Fui stared at the two people who were still holding each other. "What are both of you doing?" His aura was powerful. Long Sai was nervous and felt inexplicably guilty. He put Gu Shijio down and explained. "Shijio could eat meat today, so I was fishing and got her to grill the fish." After explaining himself, he felt a bit strange. Why would he have to explain himself to this boy? Di Fui took a leap and landed near to the two. He looked at the pot, seasoning, and the bonfire on the ground, and then looked at Gu Shijio. "Seems like you are recovering well. You even have the energy to have a wild party over here." He looked at her as if he was smiling, but there was no smile in his eyes. Apparently, the scene in front of him made him very uncomfortable. When she saw him, she was inexplicably relieved and happy in her heart. However, when she saw his current expression, why would she have the feeling that he was a husband who caught his derailed wife red-handed? Gu Shijio remembered the words he said to her when he was healing her. It seemed like really treated her as his fiancée. She frowned slightly and wanted to say something, but she noticed that Di Fui looked very pale. He was supposed to only come back after 5 or 6 days, but he returned in about half the time. Apparently, he pushed his speed to the extreme, and he did not rest at all. She was very touched, so she did not care much about his strange tone. She stood up and waved at him. "Fui, come down. Do you want to eat fish?" Di Fui's expression changed a little. He looked less serious. He jumped down and said, "Yes, I am starving." Not sure if it was intentional or not, but he sat right in between Gu Shijio and Long Sai, which made Long Sai have to move back a little. Long Sai frowned, but before he could say anything, Di Fui's gaze fell on him. "General Long, since you are so interested in cooking today, please do something for me." Although Long Sai was unhappy with the request, he could not refuse it. He faintly replied, "Your Highness has been eagerly looking for the cure for Shijio. Naturally, I need to repay you with something." He picked up the fishing rod and went fishing again. Since they had one more person to feed, 3 fishes were obviously not enough. Di Fui laughed. "General Long is really generous." He waved at the snow-white mythological beast which was standing there. "Bai Zai, come over, you've been good today. Come down and eat together with me." Therefore, the snow-white mythological beast leaped over, turned into a human form, and sat opposite Long Sai. "Thank you, General Long. I like to eat grilled fish. Can you grill more for me?" Bai Zai's human form was a handsome general in white robes. It looked heroic and elegant. However, there was also a strong aura from him that could not be ignored. Long Sai naturally knew that about the mythological beast, Bai Zai. It was the head of the 8 ancient mythological beasts from ancient time. Its status was even higher than the Emperor Immortal. Ordinary celestial beings would need to worship it when they saw it. Even Long Sai needed to pay respect to it. On the current continent, the only person who would dare to take Bai Zai as its ride was the son of the Divine Lord, Shun Yinma. When the divine couple left the continent, they left the 8 mythological beasts to their son. The beasts usually stayed in the palace of the Divine Lord and would only be called out by Di Fui when necessary. This time, to get the medicine back to Gu Shijio, he actually summoned Bai Zhe. Nonetheless, Nianma was still exhausted. Although he did not show it, his slightly pale lips still exposed his exhaustion. He was sitting next to Gu Shijio and was quite close. She could smell a faint aroma from his body. This fragrance made her heart float, and she felt inexplicable clingy to him. "Why is your face so pale? Are you feeling uncomfortable?" When her soft fingers rested on his wrist, the anger in Di Fui's heart suddenly disappeared. He closed his eyes slightly and asked, "What do you think?" In the past 3 days, he rode 10,000 miles on Bai Zhe and did not sleep. Even a mighty Bai Zhe was tired, so Shen Yinma was naturally exhausted too. Before seeking out the cure for her, he had already spent 3 days looking for her and also utilized his spiritual power to cure her. It had been nearly 7 days that he had not slept. Shen Yinma took off his mask and left it aside. Gu Shijio looked at his slightly dark-eyed bags and finally understood. "Don't tell me that you have not slept in these 3 days." Di Fui smiled and only said a few words. No mood to sleep. He was afraid that he would come back late, and she would have died due to her injuries. He did not know why he was especially scared that she disappeared. Although he knew clearly that her injury had been under control, he was still nervous and scared that she would be gone. Although Gu Shijio was grateful, she also felt bad. This kid was too kind to her. He really tried hard just to save her. She thought about it and took a small bottle from her storage space. She put it in his hand. "Come, take this." Di Fui accepted the small bottle in his hand. He opened the bottle cap and saw that 2 purple glowing pills rolled out. He looked inside the bottle and saw that there was still a lot of it inside. There were about 40 or 50 pills there. She once gave him this medicine, but he did not know what it was at that time. He took it away and studied it for a while. He found that it was an excellent supplement for spiritual power. It was difficult to find the herbs which were used to make the potent medicine. Hence, he could not identify what ingredients were added due to his inexperience. Strangely, he trusted that the pill would be effective as he felt a sense of familiarity as he sniffed it. He realized that his spiritual power had been enhanced drastically after he consumed the pill. To his surprise, the energy of the pill perfectly matched his original energy as if it was meant for him. This made him think that the pill was specially customized for him by Gu Shijio. Perhaps she really made the pill just for him? After all, her mission was to assist him in upgrading his spiritual power. The medicine must be precious, one worth 1,000 favors, and yet she gave him an entire bottle. "Do you have many bottles of this?" Di Fui asked as he shook the little bottle. "Certainly not. That was the only bottle she had. She consumed a few throughout the years and also gave a few to her close friends and those in need. That was all she had now." However, he would not take it if she told him that it was the only bottle she had. Therefore, Gu Shijio smiled and answered, "Do not worry. You need it more than me." Di Fui weighed the bottle in his palm and chuckled. "I guess you needed to complete your mission more efficiently? If that is the case, I do not want it." He tossed it back to her. Gu Shijio was speechless. He was such a problematic kid. She gave it to him for the sake of her mission and also to enhance his power. It benefited both parties, but he did not understand it. Swiftly, Longsai nicely grilled a few fishes. He then passed it to Gu Shijio. "Shijio, I'm sure you're starving. Take this first." Surprisingly, a hand stretched over and took the fish before Gu Shijio reached it. "Let me try." Gu Shijio did not speak a word as she thought that he deserved it since he contributed quite a lot earlier. Di Fui commented after taking a bite. "It is slightly salty, but overall still acceptable. There is room for improvement, General Long." Longsai was annoyed. Casually, he replied, "It sounds like your highness is an expert in this area. Why don't you grill a fish so that I can try?" Di Fui did not respond to Longsai's challenge, but gave the fish to Bai Zhe. "Nah, see if you like it." Bai Zhe took the fish over and tried it. It was not a picky eater. Hence, it was very pleased with the taste. "I think it's quite good." Di Fui smiled. "All right, I think General Long should be responsible to grill fish for Bai Zhe. Not too many, though. I think 20 to 30 would be just nice." Bai Zhe gratefully looked at Long Sai. "Thank you so much, General Long." Long Sai immediately clenched his fists. His Highness was trying to provoke him. However, the situation left him without a choice. Di Fui shifted his gaze to Long Sai as he did not respond. "General Long, are you reluctant to comply?" Long Sai heaved a sigh. "It is my honor to grill fish for General Bai, but Shijio needs to eat more nutritious food as well. Let me make two for her first. Do not worry, she should not eat heavy meals, and grilled fish is not suitable for her. I think it is better to boil fish soup for her." Di Fui then looked at Bai Zhe. "Bai Zhe, could you make some fish soup?" Bai Zhe was good at culinary arts. Even the Divine Lord complimented his skills. Hence, stewed fish was certainly not a big deal for him. However, he quickly sent a directed audio to Di Fui. "Your Highness, you should make the soup yourself if you would like to please her. I can secretly guide you." Di Fui paused for a moment and then replied by Zhe via directed audio. "I'm not good at it. It is too late to learn now." Di Fui was generally a fast learner but was unskilled at cooking. In contrast, his father was an expert in this area, and he always amazed his mother. However, it was a no for him. He had zero talent in culinary arts according to his father. Therefore, he had never made a meal for himself all these years since he left home. He did not want to expose his weakness. Bai Zhe looked at Di Fui with sympathy and said, "Honestly, General Long makes delicious grilled fish. Divine Lord will probably compliment him if he is here. Your Highness, your father did mention before, you need to take care of Aladdin's stomach if you want to win her heart. Only then will she never leave you." Di Fui was upset. He silently groaned. "Shut up. Go get the fish stewed now." It was rare to see His Highness get mad from being shy. Bai Zhe found it interesting to see that. His Highness was adorable and good-looking when he was young. He was also very energetic to the extent the 8 mythological beasts envied his aura. However, His Highness had a very short childhood. He grew up in 3 years. His Highness learned to be cunning and cruel, but usually remained calm. He always surprised people with random decisions that often triggered and pissed people off. However, it was very difficult for others to drive him mad. Although the 8 mythological beasts were happy that they did not need to worry about him being bullied, Bai Zhe, on the other hand, thought that His Highness was too calm and mature. He should be behaving like a child. It was really good to see him being mad. Bai Zhe felt that he had achieved something great, but he knew that he should not tease him anymore. With a smile, he said, "He'll get it prepared now." When he was going to do the preparation, Gu Shijio came over. "General Bai, you must be tired. Let me do it." Bai Zhe was surprised. "Does Miss Gu often cook?" Gu Shijio smiled. "I think my standards are acceptable." She had already begun to prepare ingredients as she replied. Long Sai was furious. He immediately put the grilled fishes aside and walked over. "Shijio, you're injured. Let me do the chores." Gu Shijio shook her head. "It is fine. I'm not tired. Instructor Long, go get busy." Long Sai was helpless. Hence, he returned to his spot and continued to grill the fishes while Gu Shijio took out her unique pot, which she used to make stewed fish. Bai Zhe was now certain that she was an expert in cooking. To his surprise, she even brought her own seasonings. The Divine Lord also often brought his own seasoning wherever he went to prepare meals for his wife. He did not expect this lady to have the same habit. A moment later, they could all smell the fragrance that emerged from the pot. It was fresh and nice even before it was ready to eat. Bai Zhe took a glimpse at his little master and secretly guessed that her cooking attracted his master. Perhaps there would be a madam who was good at cooking in the Fuzong Palace in the future. It felt good just thinking about it. Bai Zhe shifted his gaze to Gu Shijio and smiled with satisfaction. This lady was literally a perfect match for His Highness with so many different talents. It was then that he realized why His Highness worked so hard to get her. That was his first time seeing His Highness care about someone so much. Soon, a pot of milky fish soup was ready. Gu Shijio sniffed her food and exhaled with satisfaction, as she had not been smelled good meat for a very long time. She missed it so much. When she opened her eyes, she saw a thin white ceramic bowl with cherry blossom designs delivered to her. The hand that delivered, it was beautiful with a golden bracelet glowing in 7 colors on its wrist. As she further shifted her gaze along the purple sleeve, she found Di Fui was looking at her pitifully. "Shijio, I'm hungry." Gu Shijio had a soft spot for the boy. Hence, she scooped some soup and a few fish fillets for him. "Here, give it a try." Long Sai quickly voiced up. "Your Highness, Shijio is injured." He cursed in his heart. "Do you not feel embarrassed to take her food?" Di Fui ignored him and took a sip of the soup. He complimented. "It is indeed amazing. Shijio, you are so good at cooking." Long Sai's efforts were in vain. Di Fui did not even want to respond to him. Gu Shijio passed a bowl of fish soup to him too. "Instructor Long, you should try it too." Alas, Long Sai felt slightly better. Initially, he estimated that the soup in the pot was just enough for 2 bowls. In fact, there was still half a pot of soup that remained, even though Gu Shijio had already scooped out 2 bowls of it. Perhaps the pot was a magic tool, and she had cooked quite a lot. Hence, Long Sai felt better about taking a bowl of it. However, Di Fui took away the soup when Long Sai was about to take it. "Shijio, I think Instructor Long is too shy to try your cooking." Long Sai was speechless. Even an idiot could see that His Highness was trying to provoke Long Sai. Gu Shijio frowned and casually said, "Do not worry. There's plenty. Everyone can have some." She then took 4 bowls out and filled them with soup. She passed 1 to Long Sai and Bai Zhe, and another 2 were for herself and Lu Wu, who had just appeared in time. Long Sai glared at Di Fui and continued drinking the soup in his bowl. There were 2 bowls of hot and fragrant soup placed in front of Di Fui. Indeed, he was hungry. He had been rushing around for a few days without having a proper meal. How would he not feel hungry? Surprisingly, he suddenly lost his appetite. Meanwhile, Lu Wu had finished its soup in the blink of an eye. It had been ages since it had fish soup made by its master. It was fantastic. Naturally, it wanted more. Swiftly, it shifted its gaze to Di Fui. Since there were 2 bowls in front of him, it drew closer. "Your Highness, do you want the soup?" Di Fui replied casually, "I have lost my appetite." Lu Wu immediately said, "Do not force yourself if you have no appetite. It is such a waste if no one has it, though." Di Fui took a glimpse of it. "Do you want it?" Lu Wu nodded, "Definitely." Di Fui pushed one of the bowls to it. "Enjoy. Your Highness is so understanding." Lu Wu immediately gulped down the soup. Di Fui took a glimpse at Gu Shijio and realized that she did not notice his kind gesture as she was talking to Long Sai. He felt frustrated and poured the other bowl of his soup in a Lu Wu's bowl. "Take it. It's all yours." Lu Wu did not reject it and finished everything. This meant that Di Fui only managed to take a sip of the soup from earlier. Gu Shijio seemed to catch a glimpse of it. She frowned and asked, "Fui, did you not like the soup? Why are you not drinking it?" Di Fui twitched his lips. "I do not like to share food." He got up abruptly and tossed a bottle to Gu Shijio. "That is the antidote. Take it after an hour. Let's go." He ordered Bai Zhe. Gu Shijio was stunned. Bai Zhe was very understanding. It knew its young master was not in a good mood. Unfortunately, it would not be able to enjoy the grilled fish. Instantly, it got up and replied, "All right." It looked at the 2 of them, but was mainly looking at Gu Shijio. Softly, it said, "Miss Gu, my young master has not been eating well over the past 3 days as he was rushing to get the antidote for you." Gu Shijio felt guilty. She thought Di Fui was behaving like a child and trying to create trouble for Long Sai. Hence, she decided to ignore him when he refused to drink the soup. She did not expect him to leave so quickly. However, she regretted her actions after listening to Bai Zhe. Before she could say anything, Long Sai added, "We did not know that His Highness does not have the habit of sharing food. Let me get the chef to prepare a tableful of food. Is that okay?" "It's fine," Di Fui added. He leaped onto Bai Zhe's back after it had transformed into its original form. "Let's go." Bai Zhe flew up into the sky and disappeared. Gu Shijio remained silent as she held the bottle in her hand. His Highness is still young. It is normal for him to throw a tantrum. He is still a kid. Shijio, do not take it too personally. Gu Shijio felt frustrated. She knew that she should not blame Long Sai, but she could not help it. He is no longer a kid. He is already a man. Could you stop treating him like a kid, Instructor Long? She was slightly blunt to the extent that Long Sai got shocked. Shijio, are you angry? What happened? Gu Shijio was stunned, as she also found herself being unreasonable. She sighed and added, I did not take it personally. I am tired. I think you should rest early too. She then returned to the house. Long Sai idled as he watched her walking away. All these years, Gu Shijio was always cool and calm, and she was always good at solving problems. It was rare to see her express her emotions openly. Why did she lose control? That kid really fell in love with her. He was actually jealous. Gu Shijio sat at the edge of her bed and continued to look at the bottle she received from Difui. She realized that she should have treated him better when he arrived, as he had gone through a lot of trouble to retrieve the cure for her. However, she could not do so, as she knew that he had a special feeling for her. She closed her eyes, and many illusions flashed across her mind. The person she loved was Huang Tu, and what she had to do was to resurrect him. He had traded his life for hers, so how could she fall in love with someone else when she finally found a way to resurrect him? Therefore, no matter if Difui was a kid or not, she was destined to fail him. Hence, she should not give him hope. As a result, Gu Shijio decided to ignore him, so that he understands that she was not into him. She could not let this kid get attached to her. Given the circumstances, Gu Shijio was prepared to put aside her mission until he gets over it. She needed to wait until he could treat her as a regular friend before she could continue helping him develop. Having experienced so much in her lifetime, Gu Shijio naturally understood everything that was going on. Nonetheless, she still felt guilty about it. Although she had rejected a vast number of admirers, she never felt bad about it before. What was wrong with her this time? Was it because he was a kid? Or perhaps it was because he was the youngest among all her admirers. Gu Shijio shook her head and decided not to think about it anymore. She quickly sat down and started to meditate after consuming the antidote. The antidote was potent, and she managed to recover speedily. An hour later, she was already almost fully recovered. She lied down after doing some stretches and fell asleep unknowingly. She had a dream. It was very foggy in the dream, and she was walking in the fog alone. Apparently, it was too foggy to the extent she could not find her way out. She paused for a while to try to examine her surroundings and continued taking big steps. She was very familiar with that dream, as she often had similar dreams. She even knew what she would see in the fog. Sure enough, the mist disappeared after a short time, and she could see a man standing far away dressed in a purple robe. Although she could not tell who it was, she guessed that it should be Huang Tu. Unfortunately, she could never see his appearance clearly. She could not even identify his body size. Gu Shijio did not take a step further and decided to remain at the same spot. She knew that there was no way for her to reach him, as she had tried multiple times before. The more she chased after the man, the further he would go, and he would eventually disappear in the fog. This time, she did not want to waste her effort. Hence, she only observed him quietly. To her surprise, the man in the fog seemed to be getting closer to her, and she could see his appearance. She was shocked. The man looked like Difui. Her heart began to race, and finally, she took a step forward. Huang Tu. The man's back was initially facing her, and now he slowly turned around. Gu Shijio immediately held her breath. Difui? That was Difui in front of her. He pursed his lips as he looked at her with a pair of charming eyes. Baby! His voice was so magnetic. Gu Shijio suddenly felt an ache in her heart. A complicated emotion crept in, and she could sense a sour feeling rush up to her throat as if a duck egg was stuck in there. Helplessly, she felt like crying. Soon enough, she was embraced in his arms. He hugged her tightly, as if he was going to stuff her into his ribs. She was suffocating and slowly lost her focus. She could no longer tell if it was a dream or reality. She hugged him tightly, as if he was the one she had been looking for all these years. She then raised her chin and looked at him. You finally returned. She felt so helpless and began to sob. He sighed softly and then kissed her gently. His kiss was intense and passionate. Gu Shijio was swept away and even had a buzzing sound lingering in her head. She felt her body going numb, and she almost fell out of his embrace. While they were passionately kissing, her top was opened, and his lips slowly traveled to her sensitive spots. Her heart was racing, and subconsciously, she tried to stop him. No, Shijio, we are a married couple. I really miss you. He held her hand as he looked into her eyes. Gu Zijia's heart raced even faster. She somehow thought that they were indeed a married couple. Besides that, she never rejected his request to make love to her, as she wanted him as well. However, the circumstances were rather odd. We are in a forest. Stupid. How is this place a forest? This is our bedroom. He carried her to the bed. Her light green dress was as messy as her heart rate. She took a look at her surroundings and was shocked. She was in her bedroom in the Saha world. It was all familiar furniture, the bed drapes she always had in the bed. The layout of her bedroom has never changed all these years. Mu Feng and his colleagues thought that it was too simple, as there was not even a painting on the partition. Furthermore, her bed drapes were always in a single color. It did not look like the house of the Lord at all. They had wanted to renovate it for her, but she rejected. Although she did not like the layout of her bedroom, subconsciously, she did not want anyone to touch anything in the bedroom, as if she was trying to preserve something. She used to sleep in there every time she returned. Hence, she was already used to the layout. That was the reason she could recognize the bedroom with just a glimpse. Nonetheless, she noticed that there were some differences in there. There were some drawings on the partition, which was the scenery of Jiangnan. It was so detailed and accurate that one could feel like they could enter the painting as long as they fixed their eyes on the painting long enough. Besides that, the bed drapes were painted with lotus flowers and fishes. There was also a group of white herons flying across the sky. The bedroom, which was initially dull, had become lively after being filled with different colors. She jumped out of his arms and suddenly realized that it was supposed to be the style of this bedroom, which made her feel homey. Home. She has not felt at home for a long time. Of course, she only managed to idle for a very short time. Soon enough, she was already pressed down on the bed. The kisses were hot enough to melt her lips, and her heart rate was so familiar yet strange to her. She realized that she could not focus and began to feel numbness in her body. She could not remember anything at that moment, but subconsciously reacted to him and felt his touch as if it was something very normal between them. Certainly, she was not against it and slowly accepted his entry, his invasion, and everything about him. When he was sending her to the peak, she called his name as she trembled. Fui Pak. Her hand hit something. She quickly opened her eyes as her body trembled. It was a white drape in front of her, a white blanket, and a shining, luminous pearl. She realized the sky was bright. Gu Shijio was sweating. She did not even know the date when she opened her eyes. After a while, she quickly touched her cheek after she regained her consciousness. Her face was burning, and her heart was still racing. Gosh, she had a dirty dream. It was so real, as if it just happened. She suddenly recalled so many things. She remembered that she was still a virgin. She felt soreness on her body, and her face was burning as she sat there. How would she have such a dream? Did that really happen between Huang, Tu, and her? But the appearance of the man in her dream was. The man looked like Shin Yinma. Gosh! Gu Shiju wrapped her arms around her knees and knocked her forehead hard. How could she dream about making love to that boy? That was sinful. She could never tell who the man was until today. Was Shun Yinma the reincarnation of Huang Tu? Her heart started racing again. Was it true? However, even when someone is reborn, they look slightly different as they would take after their parents. How could one look exactly the same as in their previous life? She tried to recall the appearance of the master of the heavenly law in her dream, but unfortunately, she could not recall anything. Did she dream about him because she was overly concerned about his feelings? Or was he really the person in her dreams? After all, she once suspected that Shun Yinma was Huang Tu's reincarnation. She pondered again, and suddenly recalled the man in her dream wore a butterfly-shaped mask. It was exactly the same as the mask Di Fui wore. But even if his appearance was exactly the same as in his previous life, the mask should not be, right? Master! Gu Shijio was frightened by the sound that came from under her bed. After opening the bed drape, she noticed that Lu Wu was sitting on the floor with a cup of tea on its tail. "Are you all right, Master?" Gu Shijio replied, "I am fine." "Master, did you have a nightmare earlier? You sounded weird." Gu Shijio was speechless, and her face was heating up. Did she moan out loud? She coughed and changed the topic. "Why are you holding a teacup? Are you thirsty?" Lu Wu answered bashfully, "You sounded weird. It was as though you were suffering. I thought you were thirsty, so I made a cup of tea for you so that you can feel better. I did not expect you to hit the cup. I try my best to catch it." Gu Shijio held her forehead as she remembered that she hit something when she woke up. Where did the water go? She took a look at her blanket, and Lu Wu quickly added, "Master, I've dried the water. There's no stain on the blanket." Gu Shijio looked at it strangely as she felt Lu Wu was too careful today, which was so different compared to its normal behavior. It must have done something terrible. "What is wrong with you?" Lu Wu lowered its head and answered, "I am sorry, Master. It is my fault. I finished all the soup you gave to Mr. Fui. That was the reason he was pissed off and left angrily. I am the one who made you have nightmares, and you even called out his name in the dream." Gu Zijia's heart skipped a beat. She called his name in the dream? She remembered that she called Huang Tu, but suddenly her body was stiff as she seemed to remember something else. She might have called Fui in the dream when they were having an intimate moment. What was she doing? How desperate was she? "Master, are you all right? Your face is red." Lu Wu drew closer. Gu Shijio was annoyed and embarrassed. "I'm fine, get out." Lu Wu's neck contracted as it asked, "Huh? Get out. Now." "Lu Wu, you're already an adult." "Lu Wu, you're already an adult. You should not sleep in the same room with me anymore. No more. Both you and the muscle should move out." "Where's the muscle?" She felt like she had not seen that big eater for an entire day. Lu Wu answered with a depressed tone, "It has gone out hunting to get something for you. It did not want you to just eat vegetables. Instructor Long is a cheapskate. You helped him a lot before, but he could not even provide a good meal for you." Gu Shijio rubbed her brows. "It is not his fault. I am not allowed to eat meat at this stage. Forget about it. Just leave." Lu Wu left with its waggy tail. It looked depressed. Gu Shijio did not worry about the muscle as it was quite strong in the continent and hardly encountered any predators. Besides that, it often went hunting, and usually it would return with a bloated belly within 1 to 4 days. Since the sky was still dark, Gu Shijio decided to meditate. However, she found it difficult to calm down with all the thoughts swirling in her mind. She still could not believe that she had a dirty dream. She even could not differentiate if she made love to Huang Tu or Di Fui in the dream. Was her action considered cheating? Perhaps God was trying to remind her that she once loved Huang Tu very much and that she was not supposed to betray him? Or that Shinyanma was indeed Huang Tu's reincarnation? Countless ideas crept in her head, and she was confused. She wanted to dismiss all the thoughts. The only way she could find out the truth was to help him to upgrade his spiritual power to the level of a mighty immortal. By that time, there would be an answer to her questions. After all, the mystical messenger said Huang Tu would return once she completes her mission. Di Fui was leaning against the headrest of his bed, idling. He had changed into his pajamas, which was made of incredibly comfy white silk. He was obsessed with cleanliness. Hence, everything must be of the best quality. Although his pajamas were comfortable, he had to change it after a nap because he had a wet dream. He had never had a wet dream before and had never felt this way before he met Gu Shijio. He began to have the desire and urge, which he never longed for before. This time, he even had a wet dream. The wet dream was strange. He was a third party initially, and he saw Gu Shijio walking in the fog and chasing after someone named Huang Tuesday. At that moment, he had a very strange feeling, but he could tell what it was exactly. He did not understand the relationship between Huang Tu and her. However, he could tell that she was desperate for this man based on her facial expression and body language. He wanted to see Huang Tu's appearance so badly, but unfortunately, he only saw a blurred figure. In fact, his heart skipped a beat as he realized Huang Tu had a very similar body figure to his. He then watched them cuddling tightly, and he felt so shocked at the sight. His blood was boiling to the extent that he moved forward and separated them. To his surprise, he realized that he became Huang Tu, and his surrounding had suddenly changed into a bedroom. Di Fui felt that the layout and decoration of the bedroom looked very familiar, and he was shocked to see her in his embrace. He also felt odd that he had taken over someone else's body in the dream. He was so desperate for her touch, as if a husband had finally reunited with his wife after centuries of being apart. The only thing he wanted to do when he saw her was to shower her with passionate love. It was certainly beyond Di Fui's expectation that he had his first sexual intercourse in a dream. It was a great experience. However, he had a very complicated feeling when he woke up from the dream. He cleaned himself first, but could not manage to sleep anymore. How could the son of the divine couple be someone's replacement? Strangely enough, he enjoyed it. Although he was at the advantageous side as a substitute, he did not feel good when he woke up. It was not a random dream, but he planned for it. He knew a spell which could help him enter her dream. He was very upset and tired when he returned from Long Sai's residence. Hence, he decided to take a rest, but he could not sleep as his mind was distracted by Gu Shijio. He wanted to know what she was doing and what was on her mind. Thus, he entered her dream and even had a wet dream. Although he was sleepy, he could not sleep. He thought he was insane. He remembered that she had tricked him when he was young, and he hated her so much. Furthermore, she just treated him as a target of her mission, and she was frank about it. However, he had fallen for her. He was surrounded by many talented girls, young and pretty, polite and capable. Unfortunately, he did not like them. He had hurt many girls before, but it was beyond his expectation to fall for Gu Shijio. Perhaps it was indeed his karma. He thought about the dream again and wondered if the man was him in his previous life. Would that mean that he was her husband? He was shocked by the idea, but he also felt frustrated. She had a husband? He fell for a married woman. No, that was impossible. She was a virgin, right? It was impossible that she had a husband. Perhaps it was just purely a dirty dream. But the dream was so real. It felt so real. Di Fui was busy guessing as he sat up, unable to sleep. Your Highness, are you awake? Do you want to eat something? Bai Ze's voice was heard from the outside. Di Fui heaved a sigh and got up. Fine. He then walked out of the room. He was indeed hungry since Lu Wu has finished all the soup. He was still a little pissed off when he thought about it. Darn. She knew he was upset, and she knew he did not eat well for a few days, but she still allowed Lu Wu finished all the soup. She did not even try to keep him when he left. She did not even care about him. Bai Ze had prepared a tableful of good breakfast for him. There's a variety of choices, such as porridge and vegetables, some meats, wine, and a bowl of milky fish soup. Di Fui stared at the fish soup and then took a glimpse of Bai Ze. Bai Ze smiled gently. Your Highness, do you like it? Di Fui took a sip. Honestly speaking, it was delicious. It was even nicer than the one Gu Shijio made. He dug in silently and made a request after he finished his breakfast. Bai Ze, teach me how to cook. Tat. The chopsticks in Bai Ze's hand fell to the ground. Di Fui looked at its ancient beast with his hand under his chin. Surprised, Bai Ze was relieved. Not at all. I'm so happy. It was bizarre that the lady who His Highness liked did not intend to further their relationship. Based on Bai Ze's experience, General Long was very interested in Miss Gu, and he was trying to quietly participate in every part of her life to make him irreplaceable. While His Highness was good at almost everything, he was certainly too young. To make matters worse, Miss Gu looked at him as if he was a fragile flower. Hence, His Highness needed to put in more effort to show his maturity. Culinary art was an excellent talent to get a girl, as the divine lord also got his wife by cooking delicious food for her. Bizet remembered that the great devil used to admire the divine lord every single time he prepared delightful dishes. Now, His Highness finally understood the importance of culinary arts. Bizet was so happy about it. However, his happiness only lasted for half a day. Bizet was confident that His Highness was extremely smart. Nevertheless, he must have inherited awful cooking skills from his mother. It was incredibly bad. Although they were using the same recipe, the products they made were completely different. De Fouillet's dishes were so bad that it could kill a ghost. Bizet initially thought that there was something wrong with its sense of taste. Hence, it invited its buddy, Teng Shi, to try it. Teng Shi accidentally asked, after tasting, "Is this made from poop? Gosh, this is disgusting." As a result, Teng Shi was sent to clean the toilet by His Highness. His Highness threw away all the food he cooked and asked Bizet with a smile, "General Bai, are you trying to tell everyone that I cannot cook?" Bizet trembled and quickly explained, "How could I? Please, do not get me wrong, Your Highness." It added, "Do not worry, Your Highness, I will not tell anyone before you pick up your skills." De Fouillet nodded. He trusted Bizet quite well. To reward his subordinate, De Fouillet decided to assign Bizet to be the tester of all the dishes he made. Instead of feeling rewarded, Bizet immediately felt its world was spinning in the dark as its stomach was in pain. The mussel was missing. It was 5 days later when the news was confirmed. Although the mussel was a big eater, it would not delay its return for so many days. Gu Shijio had given the mussel a directed audio spell for convenience, and the mussel kept it in its shell, but it was accidentally eaten. It was not easy to make a directed audio spell, as it consumed quite a lot of spiritual power. Thus, Gu Shijio decided to stop making it after a few incidents. Consequently, she only gave one to Lu Wu since both of them was always together. However, 5 days ago was the first time they roamed around separately. This was very unexpected. Gu Shijio was very worried, especially when she recalled that Long Sai mentioned to her about the incident of celestial pets going missing. Therefore, she decided to search for the mussel by herself after 5 days. Due to her severe injuries, she needed another 2 weeks to fully recover, even though she had consumed the antidote. Nonetheless, 5 days were enough for her to restore half of her spiritual power. Thus, it was sufficient for her to find her celestial pet, even though she was yet to be fully recovered. There was a mountain named Yaori Mountain in the 6th heaven. Yaori Mountain was covered in gold and red. Even the leaves of the plants were gold and red. It was spectacular when it was seen from far. Yaori Mountain was covered with a lush forest and spiritual creatures. Many of the celestial fairies from the Saha world got their celestial pets from here. Typically, the most powerful spiritual creatures were often lingering deep in the forest. Hence, ordinary fairies did not manage to acquire them since they did not have the guts to explore further. The mussel once told Lu Wu that it wanted to hunt a musk deer which carried an exceptional fragrance. The musk deer was living at the outer area of the Yaori Mountain, and it was not difficult for the mussel to capture it based on its capabilities. It was now in the evening. An immense sun was hanging at the peak of the mountain. The view was amazing. Gu Shijio stopped at the outer area of Yaori Mountain with Lu Wu as it landed on the lone peak. The lone peak was more than 10 miles wide and was surrounded by a cliff. There were a few huge trees on the peak, and the Huangshan pine stretched its branches out from the peak. Gu Shijio did not have the time to admire such a nice scene at the moment. Instead, it instructed Lu Wu to search for the mussel once they landed. After all, both of them had been companions for a long time now. They should know each other very well. Lu Wu could definitely smell the mussel's scent. It seemed to be somewhat close to them. Wow, this is so beautiful. A girl was cheering somewhere nearby. It is indeed beautiful. This is the most beautiful sunset, mister. Fui even made a poem for this place some time back. Someone seconded. Huh? What poem is that, brother? Do you still remember it? Nope, I have forgotten. However, it is engraved on the rock over there. Let me show you. The sound of their footsteps was getting louder as they drew closer to the lone peak. Gu Shijio felt the voice of the young boy and girl sounded very familiar, but she could not recall where she had heard it. Nonetheless, she was interested in the conversation as she heard Mr. Fui being mentioned. She was surprised that the boy could even write poems. 5 of them gathered in front of a giant rock with a few words engraved on it, but no one noticed Gu Shijio, who was standing above them. Someone read, "The sunset combines thousands of mountains in one. I am allowed to do anything I want. However, I shall leave after completing my mission without leaving any footprints or my name." Excellent. Our eldest senior is so talented. The young girl cheered. Sister Guan, Mr. Fui is no longer our senior apprentice. You should stop addressing him this way. Someone reminded her. No, he is always Jinhua's eldest brother apprentice, even if he will never come to the Fengyan Valley again. Another lady disagreed. Someone sighed softly. Unfortunately, he will never get another teacher. He argued with all 10 of his teachers because of that evil lady. He is lost for now, but he will return. Guan Jinhua said confidently. Coincidentally, Gu Shijio heard their conversation when the 5 of them were talking. She had a rather good memory. Hence, she managed to remember all their identities. They were Master Feng Xing's disciples from the Fengyan Valley. There were 3 boys and 2 girls, and the one who was wearing a light purple dress was Guan Jinhua. All of them were guarding the ground when Gu Shijio broke into the Fengyan Valley alone. However, she did not fight with them, but only took a few glimpses of them during the battle. That was the reason she found them familiar. Gu Shijio did not have much interest in them, but was curious about their conversation. She was shocked to learn that Di Fui betrayed all his teachers because of her. Gu Shijio was not surprised that he had saved her, but she was stunned that he would go against all his clans to support her. That was equivalent to challenging the whole world. After all 10 of his teachers were the most powerful people in the world, and each of them was a great influencer. Even if their kung fu was not powerful, they could still roam around the world without being threatened due to their connections. Betrayal was a grave sin regardless of what realm. It was a shame, and one could never get rid of that dark spot. Yet, he was willing to risk everything for the evil woman. How much courage did he need to do that? Or is he just a silly kid? How much did he know about her? How could he sacrifice so much without even understanding her mission or intention? Gu Shijio had a complicated feeling and felt a little depressed. His infatuation seemed overwhelming for her. She was afraid that she could not bear with it. Guan Jinhua and the rest finally left after a series of criticism toward the evil woman. They did not notice Gu Shijio at all. Gu Shijio leaped and landed in front of the rock. She realized that his handwriting was terrific. It was out of this world. Upon careful observation, Gu Shijio found the trick to the poem after reading it twice. The last 2 phrases were modified from the phrases created by Li Bai in Jian Kuxing. The original poem should be, leaving with a flick of his sleeve after completing a task, and get his footprints and his name hidden forever. Her gaze stopped at the last 2 sentences, as it had a profound impact on her. She remembered that there were many similar poems engraved in the Crystal Palace, and most of it was exactly the same as the 2 sentences. Since she lost part of her memories, she could not find the reason she was so obsessed with the 2 sentences to the extent she had to engrave it everywhere. However, there must be a reason that she had put in so much effort to try to remind herself about something. She remembered that the 2 characters Fu and Yi were extraordinarily big when she engraved it. Would that be the thing she tried to remind herself? However, Huang Tu should be the only one in her mind, right? And the memories she had lost were all related to Huang Tu. Since she knew that she had a special relationship with Huang Tu and that they were husband and wife, she always thought that the poem she engraved should be about him. However, she suddenly had a strange idea as she looked at the poems made by Di Fui. Was Fui the nickname used by Huang Tu? It was common for men with special statuses to have 2 names. Was his second name Huang Fui? Huang Fui. She repeated the words several times, but she found that Di Fui sounded better than Huang Fui. Her heart was racing. How could it be such coincidence that both of them also changed the same words of the poem? Was it fate? Perhaps the current Di Fui might be the reincarnation of Huang Tu. Gu Zijia's heart was pounding in her chest as she quickly tapped the firmament stone and asked, "Little Tsang, is Shun Yinma the reincarnation of Huang Tu?" The firmament stone, who has been well-behaved, tried its best to conceal the truth. Heavenly secrets should not be disclosed. That was what it answered after an intense internal struggle. The firmament stone felt that its master has been interacting quite well with Shun Yinma. It was good just to keep it that way. Furthermore, the mystical messenger had warned it before that it should not disclose any information, otherwise it would bring disaster to its master. By disclosing a heavenly secret, it would add more negative variables in its master's future. Therefore, the firmament stone zipped its mouth as if it was mute to avoid any mistakes. It was afraid that Gu Shijio would continue asking, so it tried to escape. "Master, I need to continue my isolated cultivation." However, before it shut itself down, it added advice for Gu Shijio. "Master, follow your heart." Gu Shijio remained silent, but took a deep breath. She had quite a number of scruples recently. She wanted to wait for Huang Tu to return, as she did not want to fail him. Thus, subconsciously, she denied Shun Yinma and only treated him as a target of her mission. Indeed, she had a strange feeling for Shun Yinma. She paid more attention to this kid and did not feel disgusted by his ambiguous actions. It would certainly be great if he were the reincarnation of Huang Tu. Then, she would not feel guilty if she fell in love with him. But what if he was not? There would only be two outcomes. It was either she let Huang Tu down, or she hurt Shun Yinma in the end. However, that was not what she wanted. Thus, she did not want to give any hope to Shun Yinma before she could confirm. Confusion hit Gu Shijio hard over the last few days, but now, she had a clearer mind. One day, she would find out the truth. For now, she still had to complete her mission and just go with the flow. The only thing she could do was not to give him any hope before she found the truth. Moreover, he was still very young. It was not appropriate for him to be involved in relationship matters yet. It seems that helping him to focus on his cultivation was a better idea. Thus, Gu Shijio would have to wait until he becomes a mighty immortal before she could make the next move. "Master, I can smell the muscle. It was here 4 days ago." Lu Wan ran over excitedly. Gu Shijio regained her consciousness and quickly leaped onto its back. "Great, let's find it." The muscle had a straightforward traveling route as it traveled in a straight line. Apparently, it knew exactly where to hunt the musk deer when it arrived here. Gu Shijio and Lu Wu arrived in a valley as they searched for the muscle by following traces of its scent. There's a lot of grass in the area, with a fragrance similar to orchids, and that was the favorite food of musk deers. In fact, the valley was named Musk Deer Valley as it was the habitat of many musk deers. Gu Shijio took a stroll around and found the tracks of the muscle. It had probably grilled a few musk deer somewhere nearby, as she saw a grill rack. Since the muscle achieved level 8 of spiritual power, it no longer consumed raw meats. It now preferred grilled meats. It had a strange habit of stacking the firewood in the shape of its shell when it needed to grill something. In fact, it had a feast there as 3 burnt spots were found at the scene. It was here 3 days ago, and, apparently, it was a fruitful trip. Logically, it should have returned to the general's residence with the praise. How did it go missing? Lu Wu took a stroll and found something. "Master, someone had set a trap here." Gu Shijio quickly checked on it and predicted that there were 3 people here and their kung fu was equivalent to a senior immortal or above. Based on her observation, the muscle, who was enjoying a big feast, was their target. However, there was no sign of a battle. Therefore, the muscle had probably escaped as it knew that it was not strong enough to fight against them when it noticed the trap. It seemed to be extremely panicked, as it only ran in a straight line into a deeper part of the forest. Gu Shijio frowned. She knew that the muscle was not easily scared when it encountered challenges. Hence, it would not run in a straight line if it was attacked solely by 3 senior immortals. In fact, It would have probably tried its best to fight and only try to escape if it was not capable of winning the battle. However, it escaped right away this time. Apparently, it knew that the enemy was much stronger than itself. Gu Shijio wondered what kind of ferocious creature the mussel had encountered. How could it not leave any scent or trace behind? Gu Shijio continued to search with Lu Wu, and they slowly entered the deeper part of the forest. It was not easy to walk in there, as there were plenty of thorns, which made one feel as though they were stepping on needles. Abruptly, Gu Shijio paused as she heard someone talking. What a coincidence that she bumped into the 5 little kids again. It was Guan Jinhua and her clanmates. They were arguing about something, and it was loud enough for Gu Shijio to hear, even though she was not keen to listen. Gu Shijio got 2 messages out of the conversation. The first was that Shun Niamo's action of betraying his teachers still remained a secret within the 10 clans. Hence, most of the people did not know about it. The overlords of the 10 clans had not given up on Shun Nianmo, as they still planned to pull him back from the devil. After all, they were all friends of the Divine Lord. They could not let the son of their friends follow the devil. Therefore, they planned many different avenues to bring Shun Nianmo back. Secondly, they heard that there was a strange phenomenon on Yari Mountain recently. According to the prediction made by the Fortune Master, a celestial creature would be born on Yari Mountain in the next few days. Hence, they were here to try their luck. Of course, they also discussed Gu Shijio, who was referred to as a devil woman during their discussion. They suspected that she was dead, and if she was not dead, they wished that she would be paralyzed by now. In fact, Gu Shijio had been honorably upgraded from devil woman to old devil woman. Without any surprise, they repeatedly mentioned that it was dishonorable enough for her to think about getting such a young boy to be her partner. Gu Shijio curved her lips upward. She did not want to be calculated with the kids. Initially, she wanted to forgive them. However, they should not have let her hear this conversation. Since she heard it, she was getting upset. Consequently, she felt like beating them up to teach them a lesson. As a result, she smiled evilly and teleported over. When the 5 of them were happily judging her, they suddenly heard a sound of blades scraping one another and saw a few sparks. They were shocked and quickly drew their swords to fight. Ouch! Oh gosh! Before the 5 of them managed to find out who was after them, their swords were shattered and their palms were bleeding from injuries. That was not the worst thing that happened to them. A sparkling golden weapon severely damaged their clothes. They immediately retreated to avoid further attacks. Who is that? Who? Who is there? They were questioning and screaming out of fear. As they had time to catch sight of their surroundings, they realized that they did not see anyone there. Had the leaves attacked them? Those leaves were as soft and smooth as silk. Was it so powerful when it was used as a weapon? All 5 of them were frightened and subconsciously got into formation. They formed a circle with their backs, facing each other's as they tried to find the culprit. Suddenly, someone chuckled above a tree. Did your teacher not tell you that you will be sent to hell with your tongue removed if you judge someone behind their back? The voice was crystal clear as it lingered in the wind. Instantly, the 5 of them went stiff as the voice was too familiar. The 5 of them lifted their heads and looked in the direction where the voice came from. They saw someone standing on a tree. It was a lady in a light green dress with long black hair. Her skin was as white as snow, and her eyes were magical like a painting. She stood there with a golden ruler in her hand with a starry sky as her background. Beside her was a celestial beast with 9 tails that looked majestic and stunning at the same time. Although Gu Shijio did not know them well, she had left a very strong impression on them. Thus, they certainly recognized her. Guan Jinhua's expression changed instantly. You. Gu Shijio was twirling a tree branch in her hand and casually said, "What about me? Are you surprised that I am alive and happily standing in front of you?" Guan Jinhua's mouth was left ajar. Quickly, she asked, "Why are you here?" Gu Shijio frowned and replied, "Little girl, I am your senior. You did not only skip the ritual of greeting me, but also spoke to me informally. I really doubt that Master Fengxing has taught you well. Guan Jinhua wanted to say, a devil woman is not worthy to be formally spoken to. However, she did not say that, but only left her mouth opened. After all, her opponent was too strong and possessed a lot of unpredictable kung fu techniques. She was brave enough to break into the Fengyun Valley alone and beat all 10 of the overlords up. Hence, she was considered to be very powerful. Sadly, all 5 of their kung fu were so much lousier than their teachers. It was just like the eagle and the hen game if Gu Shijio wanted to beat them. Way too easy for her. The other 4 clan mates looked pale and remained silent, even though they were very upset too. Gu Shijio continued to spin the tree branch in her hand and added, I am agitated because you judged me behind my back. Hence, a lesson for you is unavoidable. Since you are still young, I have 2 suggestions for you. Do you care to listen? Gu Zijia's aura was too strong to the extent the 5 of them did not even dare to run away. After looking at each other, they suddenly screamed. They finally noticed that there were numerous holes on their clothes, and their arms and legs were exposed. That was extremely inappropriate. All the disciples in the Fengyun Valley prioritized their image very much, and they were very conservative in terms of attire. They were usually extremely tidy to the extent that all their buttons were in the right spots, and they never even exposed their neck. However, there was a big hole between their thighs, and their dresses had turned into short skirts now. Subconsciously, Guan Jinhua tried very hard to pull her dress down to cover her fair legs. However, it was helpless as the skirt was too short. She was so embarrassed that her face turned red. You're such a pervert. Psycho. Helplessly, she insulted Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio frowned as she heard it. Although their clothes were badly damaged, she was kind enough to leave their private spots covered. Was that still considered a pervert and psychopath? Gu Shijio continued to spin the tree branch as she smiled. I can be crueler. Do you want to give it a try? Guan Jinhua was speechless. What? What do you want from us? Guan Jinhua's senior brother shouted. Gu Shijio went straight to the point. It is very simple. It is either you slap each other 100 times and promise you will never criticize me again, or I cut your tongues off, and you can never speak a word again. There was a wickedly sharp knife in her hand, and she twirled the blade playfully between her fingers. Don't worry, I am very experienced in slicing tongues. I can cut it off very swiftly, so you will feel less pain. What do you think? Pick one way or another, she said with a note of sarcasm. The men were utterly shocked. The offers were both unacceptable. The first option was thoroughly demeaning, but the second one would cause them to be disabled. Before they could say anything, Gu Shijio continued, I am losing patience. There are only 2 choices. Should you refuse to choose, I will act on the second option on the count of 10. 1, 2, 3, she counted quickly, urging them to make their decision. The 5 men did not want to be disabled, so they had to choose the first option, even though it was shameful. Therefore, the 5 men slapped their own faces 100 times as punishment under Gu Zijia's supervision. Soon, all their faces were bruised. After the punishment, they also had to take an oath before they were allowed to leave. Lu Wu was delighted, but was not entirely satisfied. Master, why don't you just kill them? Gu Shijio gently touched her face as she answered. Do I look like a murderer to you? The men were only bad-mouthing her. They did not deserve to die because of verbal abuse. Moreover, they were the disciples of Master Fengxing. Although Di Fui no longer acknowledged him as his master, their bond should not be dismissed so lightly. If she killed them, she would definitely put Di Fui into a difficult position. To avoid that, she chose to give them a lesson instead. Lu Wu was at a loss of words. It could not help but complain, Master, I know what others don't. You are only 230 years old. Your age is considerably young in their world. Why are you considered as an old woman? You should stop making yourself sound older than you actually are. The muscle has lived for a few thousand years. Following by their rules, shouldn't it call itself as an old muscle? Then, Gu Shijio petted its head. You are right. Even my Lu Wu knows how to tell what is right and what is wrong. I agree with you that I am still young. They are only too blind to see my beauty. How dare they refer to me as an old, monstrous woman? Why would they say that I am old? She had a supple, graceful figure with the tender face of an 18-year-old. The celestial beings could easily be more than 1,000 years old. Shinniemo's 10 masters, for example, were all over a few thousand years old. Even some of their disciples, who had finished their apprenticeships, were already more than 1,000 years old. However, even at the age of 1,000 years, these men were still generally acknowledged as youngsters or young men. She certainly did not deserve to be referred to as an old, monstrous woman at the age of merely 200 years. It was not fair to her. Shijio, you're only about 200 years old. I would not believe it if I did not hear it from you. A voice could be heard coming from afar, behind a rock. Hesitantly, Guzigius' eyes searched for the source of the sound and found a small, man-like rock behind a huge boulder. Yin Yanli, I see that you are here as well. The small rock shook a little. With a glimpse of light, the rock turned instantaneously into a young man of pale, colored robes, with handsome and elegant features. He was Yin Yanli. He took big steps and approached Gu Shijio delightfully. It is a small world, after all. Shijio, here we meet again. She certainly had not expected to bump into an old friend. What a coincidence! Why are you here? Gu Shijio was happy to see him as well. After a little chat, Gu Shijio found out that he was here because of the rare majestic being. Yin Yanli wanted to try his luck to capture the majestic being. He met with a group of silver wolves in the depths of the wood and was unfortunately injured, so he had to retreat to safety. He was taking his rest when he heard some footsteps. It was already too late for him to escape, so he decided to camouflage and turn himself into a rock to avoid any possible encounters with an enemy. Standing amongst other rocks, he certainly did not stand out. His kung fu was decent, but he would prefer to go unnoticed. Gu Shijio came later on, but was entirely focused on the clan. She failed to notice him until he revealed himself. Yin Yanli had been there 3 days earlier than her. Hence, Gu Shijio asked if he had seen a muscle by describing the general features of her pet to him. Yin Yanli was bewildered. Is the muscle the majestic being that you mentioned before? Have you brought it along to heaven? Gu Shijio had once told him about her majestic beings when they traveled together in the past. She told him about Lu Wu and the muscle, but they were both in the mortal world at the time, so Yin Yanli had only heard about them. Gu Shijio nodded. Have you seen it? Yin Yanli answered hesitantly. I had seen one. They called it the monstrous muscle for swallowing many majestic beings. It was taken away by a few celestial beings. Gu Zigius' expression changed abruptly. Did the muscle make the same old mistake again? She had once warned it not to eat any majestic beings of level 7 and above. Most of these majestic beings had their own masters. Gu Shijio wanted to avoid making unnecessary enemies. What majestic being did it swallow? Who took the muscle away? Yin Yanli sighed. I did not know the details. When I saw them, they already had the muscle captive and were ready to put it into a magic instrument. They were the 4 great guardians of the Emperor Immortal. It was not appropriate for them to see me, so I did not reveal myself. I only heard them claiming that they had captured the killer behind the massacre of the majestic beings. Then, they headed towards the direction of Yaori Hill, and I have not seen them since. Gu Shijio heaved a long sigh. She was aware of the case of the missing majestic beings. Little did she know that the muscle was going to be blamed for a crime it did not commit. The case had already happened long before the muscle went for its hunt. How could the muscle be the killer? It must be wronged. Gu Shijio was enraged. She knew that the men were the 4 great guardians of the new Emperor Immortal. Most of them had achieved the level of a mighty immortal and were all well-trained and experienced warriors from countless of brutal battles. Upright and unyielding, they were the new right-hand men of the Emperor Immortal. All of them were very loyal to the Emperor Immortal, as they had been following him to the battlefield since many years ago. They were known for their cruel and merciless conduct. When a new emperor ascended the throne, some of the followers of the past emperor were clearly in defiance. Secretly, They try to search for the descendants of the last emperor to overthrow the regime. However, the four great guardians discovered the scheme by sending their men into the rebel group as undercover agents. As a result, all the rebels were successfully captured and executed openly in the busy streets. On that day, the slaughter resulted in rivers of blood. A total of 300 people were beheaded. The cruelty shocked almost every member of Sahel world. It was told that only dozens of people were captured at first. However, the torments that the four great guardians had put them through were terribly painful. In the end, they confessed and uncovered more people that were also involved. Many of these rebels were known to be very stubborn. It was unheard of for them to be compelled to confess, but none of them were able to withstand the severe suffering in the hands of the four great guardians. In return for their confession, their only wish was death. Since then, the four great guardians were also known as the four great Shuras. Now that the muscle had fallen into their hands, no one knew what kind of suffering they would put it through. Gu Shijio could barely keep calm at the thought of it. The muscle was like a family to Gu Shijio, even though it would often get itself into trouble due to its uncontrollable appetite. She certainly would not allow anyone to harm her family. The new Emperor Immortal's interests did not overlap with hers. She knew that he was secretly investigating her, but she was not afraid of that, for she had a clear conscience with no shame of her actions. Thus, she pretended that she did not know about it. She would let the incident pass if the muscle was fine. If the muscle was really dead as a result of the four great guardians' torment, no matter whom they belonged to, she would definitely seek for a just resolution on behalf of the muscle's death. She thought about the situation for a moment. Then, she made contact with Long Sai. Instructor Long, do you know where Tai Lu and the other great guardians are? They received a secret report regarding the whereabouts of the devilish conspirator behind the massacre and went away to capture it. They have yet to return. Gu Shijio sighed. When did they leave? Have they said anything about the devil being? They left 3 days ago, after receiving information from a reliable source. However, I'm not sure about the details. Shijio, why are you asking about them? Is there anything wrong? Long Sai was concerned. They may have mistaken my muscle as the devil being. Instructor Long, is there any way that you can contact them? How is that even possible? The muscle can never be the conspirator. The missing case of the majestic beings has been ongoing for almost 2 weeks now. Yet, the muscle has only been away from the general's residence for 5 days. Yes, which is why I know that the muscle is innocent. Instructor, please contact them right away. All right. Soon, Long Sai replied. Shijio, I have failed to get in touch with them. They must be located in some forbidden place right now, so they have to shut their directed audio spell. However, I have some news from the Emperor. 2 days ago, the four great guardians reported to the Emperor that they had captured the prime criminal behind the disappearance of the majestic beings. It was a muscle. They would interrogate it to find out about other criminals before bringing it back to the ninth heaven for the Emperor to make his final decision. Gu Shijio clenched her fists in frustration. What Long Sai told her was a complete match to Yun Yanli's observation. Long Sai also knew the urgency of the matter, so he continued, Shijio, I have already told the Emperor that the muscle is not the prime criminal. I have also requested for the immediate release of the muscle once the Emperor is in touch with the four great guardians. Where are you now? I will come to you. I am now at Yari Hill. You do not have to come here. Just contact Tai Lu and the other men for me. Long Sai's current location was far away from where she was. Even with his speed, he would take at least half a day to get to her. She could not wait for him. Also, Long Sai's presence would not be of any use if the muscle's whereabouts remained unknown. Therefore, she hung up and turned to Yin Yanli instead. My prince, did you see where they went? Yin Yanli led Gu Shijio all the way to the hillside, where the muscle was captured. Lu Wu sniffed around and could pick up its scent. Also, it found a pearl that was left behind by the muscle. Master, the muscle was indeed captured right here. Lu Wu exclaimed. There was an agreement between the muscle and Lu Wu. If anything happened to the muscle, it would leave a pearl behind as a sign to communicate with Lu Wu. The pearl was grayish without any luminance. At first glance, it looked ordinary, just like a small rock. Lu Wu walked around it to observe it and reported to Gu Shijio right away. For men attacked it in a siege. Gu Shijio nodded in agreement. She, too, took notice of the traces left behind by the muscle and the men. There was a large pool of blood that belonged to the muscle. Obviously, it was injured and held captive. Every piece of evidence was a match to her speculation. She could assume that the muscle that the four great guardians had claimed must be hers. Lu Wu, trace the scents of these four men and find them. Yes. Lu Wu took a sniff of their surroundings and pointed at a direction. They went that way. Right, let's look for them. Yin Yanli offered to join them. Shijio, I shall join you. It is all right. You are still injured, so you should focus on your recovery. I can find them on my own. Gu Shijio then swiftly passed him a bottle of medicine before leaving with Lu Wu. Hesitantly, Yin Yanli slowed down. He knew that his identity must not be revealed, so it was not appropriate for him to see the four great guardians face to face. He would be in great trouble if they found out that he was still alive. Hence, he headed in a different direction, though he promised to still help in the search. Gu Shijio was burning with anxiety. She was worried about the condition of the muscle. Had it been tortured? She bore no interest in politics. She would stay away from the complications, as long as the political game did not harm any of the people that she cared about. She had certainly heard about the four great guardians and the massacre, too, but she was not really concerned. In politics, there was no definite line between right and wrong. Every single one of the rulers would definitely do anything that he could to secure their throne, even if it meant driving away and exterminating the surviving members of the past royal family to ensure that there are no mishaps. They would spare no mercy in the killings, especially to those who rose in rebellion to the succession of the throne. The evil plots for the throne would often end up in brutal fights, even between a father and a son, let alone the members of no blood connection. Every change of era was built on blood and bones. Yi Tianli, the new emperor immortal, could be considered as a good emperor, but he should not be acknowledged as a good man. A really good man would never be able to become an emperor. Also, his followers would not be any better, just like the four great guardians. Their names had become a byword for cruelty. People would tremble in fear upon hearing their brutal torments. Her only hope was that they would not torture the muscle for the sake of its identity as a majestic being. The muscle had three major concerns. First and foremost, it feared that its master would one day abandon it. Secondly, it had a fear of hunger. Lastly, it was scared of confinement. At this very moment, it was experiencing two of its three greatest fears. It had not been given anything to eat for the past 3 days, not even a drop of water. Also, it was confined in a magic bottle gourd. The magic bottle gourd was no ordinary cell. It was a magical item that could change its size to accommodate different needs. When a muscle was first confined in the bottle, it tried to expand its size to shatter the wall. To its surprise, the bottle grew along with its body size. The muscle had tried many times, but nothing worked. In desperation, it wanted to cry so badly. It had heard about the story called A Journey to the West from its master. In the story, the monsters had many magical instruments. One of them was known as the golden purple bottle gourd. It had once housed Sun Wukong in it. It thought that what she had shared was only a story, so it was beguiled with the tale of adventure. Never had it expected that it would one day be trapped and tortured in a similar situation. The bottle was like a living hell. The muscle thought that the actual hell would probably be a much better place than the bottle. For the first 2 hours, there would be raging fires, tormenting the muscle from every corner. The next 2 hours, there would be piercing cold winds, penetrating the muscle's skin. The temperature could drop abruptly to 70 or 80 degrees below zero, so cold that it could only breathe ice out of its nostrils. The following 2 hours would be filled with the smoke torment. The smoke would choke the muscle, making it difficult for the muscle to breathe. These torments were considerably bearable for the muscle. What tortured it the most was the smell of food that would fill its nostrils every 2 hours. The food that the mussel smelled was one of its favorite grilled meat. Tempted by the sweet smell, it could not help but open its shells. Unfortunately, what came before its eyes was not food, but boiling oil. It could not hide from the tempting smell the first time. The boiling oil slipped through its shell's opening and burned its flesh. Luckily, it had closed its shells quickly enough to avoid even greater disasters. Unavoidably, some parts of its soft, supple skin were burned. There were many blisters scattered on its body. Even the slightest movement came as a pain to it. The mussel had never encountered such brutal torments throughout its whole life. Every second was torture. It started to hope for death. It then heard a voice as cold as ice. "Do you still refuse to confess to your crime?" Confess? The mussel would never confess. It felt utterly wronged, as though living the tragedy of the innocent doe, E1. It only wanted to hunt for a musk deer and make a feast for its master. Fond of good food, it ended up hunting more musk deers for its own indulgence. That was when it fell into the ambush. There were 3 senior immortals who wanted to hunt the mussel. They accused it as the mastermind behind the recent massacre of the majestic beings. The mussel was not afraid to fight the senior immortals to show them its strength, but before it made any move, it was overwhelmed with fear from a foreboding threat. The mussel was sensitive enough to notice the threatening, ominous aura. It was so strong that it made its shells tremble. Instinctively, it knew that it was a sign of danger, so it abandoned the fight and quickly ran away. The 3 senior immortals continued to chase after it. The more the mussel tried to run, the grumpier and hungrier it felt. It could barely stay focused anymore. Hence, the mussel turned around and fought the senior immortals head-on. It took advantage of its animal disposition and swallowed them alive. The incident greatly impinged on its consciousness. It sobered up quickly and trembled in fear, knowing that it had swallowed the 3 senior immortals. Its master had clearly warned that it was not allowed to eat any human being. This was much worse because it swallowed 3 senior immortals alive. It had just got itself into big trouble. When it was still dazed by the trouble that it had just made, another 3 majestic beings showed up. They were there to seek revenge for their masters. They verbally abused the mussel by calling it as the scum of the community. Being greatly impetuous, it began to fight the 3 majestic beings and ended up swallowing them, too. While it was eating the majestic beings, the 4 great guardians came unexpectedly and witnessed the scene. The 4 great guardians had great strength, each equivalent to the spiritual power of a mighty immortal. The mussel was no match for them, so it was soon defeated and captured. When it was caught, it was kept in a glass bottle. The interior of the glass bottle was very refreshing and comfortable at first. When it finally calmed down, it realized that it had made a huge mistake. If they only wanted it to make an apology, it would not oppose the idea. Instead, the 4 great guardians accused it as the killer of the recent massacre of the majestic beings, claiming that it had committed all sorts of wickedness. It was blamed for the death of the 18 majestic beings, plus the 3 senior immortals. The mussel refused to admit to the accusations. It only confessed to what it had done. One of the great guardians then proceeded to punish the mussel. He got out from the glass bottle and tried to inflict pain on the mussel with thunderbolts, swords, and even fire. The torment was to no avail, for the mussel had a high level of cultivation. The simple punishments did not harm it at all. In the end, one of the great guardians, who wore a red robe, offered his bottle gourd. That marked the beginning of the mussel's purgatory suffering. The inside of the bottle gourd was really strange. The mussel was not only physically tortured, but also starved. It was completely famished only after a day, so hungry that it wanted to eat its own flesh. After 2 days, it started to suffer from blackouts due to the immense hunger. With unwavering spirit, it still refused to admit to the crimes that it never committed, no matter how they tried to combine the threats with punishments. The mussel hid in its shells and said nothing. They would come and interrogate it once every 2 hours. At first, the mussel exploded with rage due to the accusations, but gradually it grew numb. The The great guardians were not expecting the muscle to be so stubborn. Hesitantly, they tried to persuade it. You are only a majestic being. There is no need for you to take the blame for others. You only have to name the man behind this vicious plot. If you do so, I will release you immediately and feed you with good food. The air is refreshing out here. I'm sure that the outside is more comfortable than where you are right now. The muscle remained silent. It should take the blame for its own fault. Impulsively, it made the mistake of swallowing the 3 senior immortals, so the incident had nothing to do with its master. The great guardian in red, however, kept coercing the muscle into saying that it only acted on its master's instigation. It appears that you will not shed a tear until you see the coffin. It is time for you to experience the real pain then. The muscle could tell that the man was enraged. All of a sudden, the man started casting some spells on the bottle gourd, causing the interior of the bottle to fill with burning hot steel needles. These steel needles started to aim and fall on its shell like a raging storm. The muscle shells were capable of resisting against any weapon. Normal weapons would not cause any damage to it. However, it had been tortured for 2 days straight in the fire and cold. It grew weaker, so it barely had the strength to close its shells completely. The fine and stinging steel needles then slipped through the openings and stabbed its flesh. A brief moment later, the muscle's soft, smooth flesh was stabbed with many needles, making it look as if a hedgehog. The steel needles were able to induce more pain than normal ones. It was unbearable. The muscle started crying and howling in pain. Its long, mournful cry of pain was spread even to the outside of the bottle, like the continuous whistle of a train. The ground started to shake as a result of its loud cry. "Damn it!" one of the men cursed. He quickly shut the opening of the bottle to stop the sounds from the muscle from being heard. The bottle then became a confined space, magnifying the volume of its wailing sound and reaching a deafening crescendo. In a daze, the muscle could hear someone complaining. "My third brother, what are you doing? You have kept it in the bottle long enough for the torments to take place. It should have admitted its crimes, but it still refuses to. Perhaps our direction is wrong. Maybe it is not the evil beast that we are looking for. Maybe it was all a coincidence. My eldest brother, nothing is ever a coincidence. We have seen how it swallowed the majestic beings alive. It has also swallowed the 3 senior immortals. It is a crime that goes against all the heavenly laws. It deserves to die. All the majestic beings have been taught not to swallow humans or majestic beings of level 6 and above, but it disregarded the rules and committed the crime anyway. Obviously, it is a seasoned criminal. It is a level 9 beast, so I bet that it will not be able to act so wildly without the support of its master. Its master must be the main conspirator behind the plot. It is not like that. My master has never allowed me to eat humans. It is all my fault." The muscle continued to howl its displeasure. Its voice cracked with emotion. The pain was obviously too much for it to bear. "Who is your master?" Tai Lu took the chance to ask the muscle. "I am its master." A voice could be heard coming from the top of a tree, way above the 4 great guardians. In pain, the muscle was starting to grow dizzy, its vision blurred. Upon hearing the voice, it could not believe it at first. Then, it jumped abruptly, disregarding the steel needles on its body, and cried out loud, "Master!" Its tears started to fall like a stream of a waterfall. The 4 men looked up and saw a woman, along with a majestic being, on a tree. The beast was Lu Wu, which was swaying its 9 tails. As for the woman, she was wearing a pale green dress. Her face, however, was covered by a disturbing, ghostly mask. There was a golden ruler in her hand. There she stood, not tall but with great aura. She was the mysterious woman, evil woman, everyone had been ranting about. The person who was trying to get together with a child. The 4 men grew anxious at the thought of her. They had seen Gushijio before, twice in fact. The first time was during the wedding of the Divine Lord, and the second was on Shiniemo's birthday. They had witnessed both her appearances, so she had certainly left a strong impression on them. Clearly, they knew that they should not mess with the woman. Even the Divine Lord would stay away from her. The Emperor Immortal, too, chose not to antagonize her. "Are you the master of the muscle?" Tai Zheng, one of the great guardians, questioned her. The bottle gourd on the ground caught Gu Zijia's attention. The size of the bottle gourd was quite huge. It was basically as big as a small hill. She could hear the muscle crying hoarsely in the bottle. Apparently, it was undergoing some kind of torment. Lu Wu and the muscle were great friends. Therefore, it immediately rushed forward angrily. "What have you done to the muscle? Release it now." Lu Wu was quick, but not quick enough. Tai Lu, the third great guardian, swiftly cast a spell on the bottle gourd. Almost instantaneously, the bottle shrunk in size and flew rapidly towards Tai Liu's palm. Tai Lu was generally known in Saha world for his speed, which was something he could be proud of. This time, however, someone was obviously quicker than him. Before the bottle gourd could even reach his palm, it was intercepted mid-air by someone else. Tai Lu was stunned. The other great guardians stood in shock as well. The one who intercepted the bottle gourd was the mysterious evil woman. At this moment, she had already retreated about 30 feet away from them. On her delicate palm lay Tai Liu's precious bottle gourd. The muscle in the bottle seemed to have sensed something. It stopped moving all of a sudden. "Muscle, are you all right?" Gu Shijio was concerned. Soon, the muscle replied in a timid voice, "Master." Its voice was soft, but Gu Shijio could tell that it was filled with guilt and grievance. "Release it." Gu Shijio threw a harsh look at Tai Lu. The bottle gourd was a magical item. Without specific incantation, Gu Shijio would not be able to open it. Gu Shijio had heard about these magical items, so she knew that the bottle gourd was nothing ordinary from the very first sight. It took Tai Lu some time to comprehend what had happened. He tried to keep a calm composure and responded scornfully, "It is the criminal that we have been looking for. We cannot simply release it. As its master, you have connived with it to commit such crimes. You will not get away from the punishment as well." Gu Shijio refused to argue with him anymore. "It is innocent, so let it out. If you refuse to cast the spell, I shall release it on my own. By that time, I am afraid that your bottle gourd will not be in one piece." Tai Lu hesitated, but was not fully convinced. The bottle gourd could not be damaged that easily. Not even fire, a sword, water, or boiling oil could scratch at the slightest bit. So far, no one had ever done any damage to the bottle. It was basically unbreakable. He was not really concerned about the bottle, even if it was in Gu Zijia's hands. I have said it before, and I am saying it again. It is a criminal, so I will not release it. Give it back to me, or I will impose severe punishments on it. Streaks of golden rays started to emerge on his fingertips. Through the light, there were all sorts of incantations floating in the air. If I cast these incantations on the bottle, the temperature within it will rise tremendously, high enough to melt metals. Everything in the bottle will turn into piles of ash. His words were threatening to Lu Wu. Anxiously, it looked at Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio answered very coldly. "Are you going to kill it even before confirming that it is the criminal you seek?" It would appear that the four great guardians are not so great, after all. Tai Lu dismissed her remarks swiftly. "On the count of 3, I will cast the incantations on the bottle if you refuse to give it back to me. 1, 2, 3. He spoke with force and deliberation. After the countdown, all he could hear was a loud explosion. In a glimpse, Gu Shijio was circled with intense streaks of 7 colored rays. Soon, many broken pieces started to scatter around. Tai Lu was shocked to the core. His heart ached for the broken bottle. It was his most cherished item. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Caught in a daze, none of them was able to react quickly enough. The amazing bottle gourd was shattered instantly into many broken pieces while the muscle fell right out of it. Swiftly with its tail, Lu Wu swept the muscle onto its back. A moment later, Lu Wu's tail started to tremble in pain. "Oh my, this is so painful. Muscle, since when have you got thorns?" Its tail was unfortunately pricked. Caught off guard, Lu Wu quickly put its tail right in front of its eyes to observe it better. When it saw the burning hot steel needles, it could not help but tremble in revulsion. Quickly, it wanted to take the needles off. "Don't move," Gushijio demanded while holding its tail in place. With a flash of seven-colored ray, the burning hot needles slowly melted away. Nonetheless, its tail was still hurt, even without the thorns. The pain was unbearable. It never knew that being pricked by the thorns could be so painful. The sensation was comparable to the pain of being stung by a swarm of bees. Intuitively, it looked back to check on the muscle. Upon seeing it clearly, Lu Wu's eyes opened widely in astonishment. Was it a hedgehog or a mussel? The mussel was surrounded entirely by countless of fiery red steel needles. There were probably fewer thorns on the back of a hedgehog. When did the mussel start to grow these harmful thorns? Did it acquire another ability? Before Lu Wu could ask any question, it saw Gu Shijio approach the mussel in intense flashes of seven-colored rays, securing it in the light. A few moments later, the thorns disappeared, revealing its broken shells that were full of holes. Luckily, its shells were thick enough to prevent the needles from puncturing through. Only its outer layer was scratched. Lu Wu looked at the mussel that was still groaning in pain and was confused. "Mussel, do you feel pain even on your shells?" The mussel slowly opened its shells. A human figure, pricked with fiery red steel needles, emerged and cried loudly, "Master!" Lu Wu was utterly surprised to see the mussel, so surprised that all its tails opened up like a peacock. The sight made its flesh creep. "Oh my, mussel!" The little child in the shells was barely recognizable. Thorns were all over its body, even on the back of its hands, everywhere except for its face. The mussel trembled in great fear. Its eyes were red with tears slowly streaming down its face. "Master, Master, I thought I would never see you again." Gu Zijia's fingers shook involuntarily at the terrifying sight. She somehow knew that the mussel would definitely suffer, but she never expected that the punishment would be so brutal. These men decided to torture it before finding out the truth. Moreover, the mussel was indeed innocent. She commented nothing. Instead, she cast some spells on the mussel. Streaks of seven-colored rays flashed by, taking away all the fine needles. They could finally see the mussel's body. Lu Wu looked furious. The mussel's little body was not only covered with many fine needles, but there were also festering wounds and blisters. The mussel was particular with its neat appearance. It liked to wear little robes, exposing its cute, tiny limbs. Anyone would definitely want to hug it as soon as they saw it. At the moment, only its face was still intact. The rest of its body was all injured. Also, the mussel used to be quite chubby. Now, its body was reduced to nothing but a skeleton. Its face was no longer big and chubby. Instead, it looked skinny and oval, like all of the water content in its body had been evaporated. The mussel was clearly in great agony, so much so that it wanted to twist about in pain. It looked at Gu Shijio with innocent eyes. Tears started to roll in its eyes, but it tried hard to hold them back. "If you are in pain, cry it out." Quickly, Gu Shijio applied some medicine on its body. "I will not laugh at you," she comforted. The mussel thus burst into loud sobs. In the past 3 days of suffering, death came across as its final wish so many times. However, it wanted to live long enough to see its master again. It did not want to bear the grudge by becoming a scapegoat. If it died, there would be no witness. Such a blind spot would put its master into trouble. Therefore, it tried its best to stay alive. Nonetheless, it was very concerned about its safety, for it was worried that the 4 men would kill it any time. Now it finally got to see its master again. Utterly relieved, knowing that it was safe, it started to cry like a baby. Lu Wu felt much sympathy for the mussel. It wanted to caress it with its tail. However, the mussel could still feel stinging pain on its skin when in contact with Lu Wu's soft, fluffy tail. Gu Shijio had been busy taking care of the mussel ever since its release. She did not even bother to look at the 4 great guardians. For the first time, their presence had been completely ignored. If the same situation happened in a different scenario, they would have already risen in revolt. This time, They only stood gazing at Gushijio, who was still busy caring for the muscle. They did not even raise their voice. Tai Lu was very angry for the loss of his favorite magical item, but Guzigius' aura was too intimidating. The bleak aura conveyed a strong sense of desolation in the air. The four great guardians started to feel suffocated. They gave each other a look and started to communicate via directed audio. My third brother, why did you torture the muscle to such a brutal extent? Taizheng could not help but ask Tai Lu about the torment. The muscle's wounds came as a gruesome sight, even for someone as cold-blooded as him. Tai Lu looked a little worried, but he still thought that he did the right thing. It is only a muscle. Moreover, it had committed such a deadly crime. It deserves to be punished, even if that means cooking it alive in a soup. The more he defended his action, the more he felt confident about it. Determined, he decided to take the first step. He spoke up. You have allowed your majestic being to commit physical assault on innocent beings. It is an unforgivable crime. Also, you have destroyed my magical item, thus violating the heaven's commandment. You should behave yourself and follow us now to the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Gushijio continued to ignore him. She was busy applying the last drop of the medicine on the muscle's wound. Drink this, she demanded while passing it a bottle of elixir. The muscle was thirsty, so it quickly finished up the elixir. The drink was not only thirst-quenching, but also significantly reviving. The medicine that Gushijio applied on the muscle could cure many different poisons and wounds. Also, she made it especially for the muscle to fit its situation. The medicine was able to heal the wounds quickly while acting as an analgesic. The muscle was no longer in pain. It rose and gave the four great guardians a harsh, angry look. There was a fire in its eyes. Master, they kept accusing me as the prime criminal of some massacre. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.